Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you, as always, on our Monday. And as always, I'm joined by Andrew Combo Salad to discuss the latest and the greatest in the NBA. And Combo, are you with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Microphone
check. Okay, we're here. I want to thank everybody that listens to B-Ball Breakdown across the globe, our live shows. I feel like I haven't done a good enough job of thanking everybody that tunes in every week. Because there's a lot of listeners that, come every single week to listen to us, to watch us. And I really appreciate them all, Coach Nick.
Absolutely. And there's no better time than the present to, right a wrong. And so if you didn't feel like you have, and I think you have, lay it on more and no one will be mad. So, and thank you, Combo, for showing up here every week and keeping me on track to get these things out. And thank everybody out there right now who's part of the show as they all start streaming in here. So, we are talking about a lot of things today. And don't forget, if you want a question answered, the best way to do that is on the super chat function on YouTube. So head over there if you're not there yet and get your question up there. We'll definitely put it up there, give you a lot of love, a lot of hype. And then you'll be forever on our show. So I suppose let's start off with the link with the title, which is talking about Russell Westbrook and the new fit in Denver. I didn't think it was going to go very well. I don't think that was a hot take before the season started. But what did you think? Can you remember what you felt like when you heard that Russ was going to go to Denver?
I think a good sign was that Jokic seemed like he was in favor of playing with Russ. There were some good quotes coming out of there in that regard. So I think that was a good sign. And I do see why it could be a good fit because Russell realizes this is Jokic's team and he's learning how to play around him. He's cutting into space. He's playing with a lot of energy. And it's been a great fit so far. And it's been actually needed because Jamal Murray hasn't been Jamal Murray. And for this Nuggets team to win, Jamal Murray is going to have to be Jamal Murray. And they've been playing better lately.
I agree. So they've won 7 of the last 10 to kind of get back into the contention here where they're now up to 4th in the Western Conference, a game and a half behind Memphis. And don't forget, the interesting thing is the Rockets are number 2. Memphis is number 3, which I don't know if anybody had on their bingo card when they started the season either. So interesting surprises there. But again, they've won 7 out of 10. They've won the last 3 in a row. And so I kind of pulled out the stats just to kind of look at this because the cutting by Russ was a big surprise for me. I didn't know if he would be able to do that. I don't think we had much evidence of that at all. I mean, we can think back when he was playing in Houston alongside Harden and they were doubling off of Russ and it didn't go great. It was okay. Then he got hurt before they could kind of really get going. So, being an off-ball cutter with arguably the best passer of all time in the NBA wasn't the thing that I thought was going to work that well. But it has. It's worked better. That said, we're still going to see the same Russ plays that have driven me crazy since he's got into the league. The wild, crazy missed layups. And, in fact, we have the one where I'm going to do the video this week probably or very soon. And, I might have to – sorry, Combo and everybody out there, but I might have to just show that incredible behind-the-back pass that Jokic throws to him from the post under the basket all by himself. And he's not only does he smoke the layup, he shoots an air ball from 1 foot away. And so that's still happening. But at the very least, here are the numbers real quick. Let's get to those. In the last 10 games, when they've gone 7-3, Russell Westbrook's played all those games. He's shooting 54% from the field, only 31% from 3, which is what he's been doing overall. So he's not been able to solve that. It was much lower before. So at least he's gotten into the 30s. But the 54% from the field goal range tells you he's now making a lot more of those shots around the rim and maybe some of those middies. But eight assists per game, 7.7 rebounds, and really just having an impact. So that's really great to see.
Yeah, 26 points, 19 points, 25 points, 21 points over the last 4. And most importantly, they're winning games. And, there's a lot of chatter around trading Michael Porter Jr. I don't really see why. I think he fits this team perfectly, and he's been shooting the ball well. Aaron Gordon's back. And then, as I said, it just all comes down to Jamal Murray. Mm-hmm. Russ has to play like this, and then they have a chance for contention again if all that goes together because they are playing with the best player in the world.
Absolutely. And honestly, the way this roster is constructed, they shouldn't have been barely making the playoffs the way they had been playing the first quarter of the season. So this is a lot closer, I think, to what, the regression to the mean, where they're going to be. And I would be surprised if they didn't finish in the top 4 in the Western Conference. I'm pretty sure they're kind of finding their footing and they can do that. But I think the point you're making is great in terms of if you want to make a jump and then get to the next tier, which they're not at yet. They're not at the championship tier yet. Yes, Jamal Murray needs to kind of find some ways to play better. He's been okay in the last 10 as well. If you want to look at his numbers, he's averaging 19 a game, but he's not shooting great, 44.7% from the field overall. But he's at 43 for 3-point range, which is really good. With almost 6 assists a game, keeping the turnovers down. So he is doing better, but yes, it's one of those inexplicable things where, I've seen some plays recently where that's the old Jamal Murray. He's done some amazing shots. So you have to hope that maybe those are coming back a little bit more often. But it is astounding how he can go from one extreme to the others so quickly recently.
Yeah, I mean, he has been playing better. I would say that his athleticism is not like Bubble Murray at this point yet, but hopefully he could get somewhere back to that because he's young. I mean, he's not an older player, so maybe he could just keep increasing his playing and just keep getting better, and then he could get to where he's back to Bubble Murray, man.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that guys like Aaron Gordon need to find ways to be more impactful. Michael Porter Jr. is second in the scoring in the last 10 games as well. So he's finding his footing and he's shooting really well from 3. And, we've seen a lot of evidence of issues with his defense. But it doesn't really matter if he's going to score like 20 in a game and shoot 45% from 3. However many buckets he's giving up, he's getting back on his end with shooting it and then some. So it's okay. And also we got to give a shout out to Mike Malone for figuring this out as well, because he's one of those coaches that no one talks enough about. And for him to be able to integrate Russ and figure out how to get him to fit into this offense and as a cutter is impressive to me, because I don't know if any other coach has been able to do that throughout his career yet until today.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the coaches don't get enough credit, right, when their teams are playing well. It always comes down to the players when you're winning, and then when you're losing, you get fired. And even sometimes if you're winning a little bit, you get fired. Doug Christie's been really good, 7 in a row for the Kings, by the way.
Is it really 7 now? Crap. I got to get I think we're going to get Mark Jones on the show to talk about it, play-by-play for them. And I got to do a deep dive because I don't know. It felt to me like Mike Brown had done a nice job of changing some of the culture, installing a great offense. Like there was some good stuff there, but it's hard. Like at some point, right, you can't ignore that something's changed. What I'm going to do is end up pulling apart all the minutes. I'm curious. He must have changed some of the lineups. I kind of look at it.
So what I've noticed is he's simplified the game. There's just been less offense, and they've been playing more free, and they've just been playing like, these guys are hoopers like DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk. And a lot of those guys just like to hoop. And I think that they're playing more simple style of basketball and they've been playing more free.
All right. Because, I can't deny that, like, all the Princeton stuff does have a lot of timing and action and movement and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It sounds like what you're seeing is maybe a little bit less of that sort of spread, pick and roll, just let them go.
Yeah.
I could hear that. De'Aaron Fox, maybe he did feel a little bit stifled in that kind of offense because – a lot of times it requires the point guard to dribble the ball up and then hand it off, and then you probably don't see the ball back again, right? Or you might.
Right.
And that's sort of like that kind of talks to like maybe why Tony Parker in the Spurs offense never really averaged a lot of assists, because he'd be giving it up early, and then the only time he's getting it back would be in some sort of scoring opportunity, which he was great at. So he's not going to have the ball for 18 seconds in control and then throw a dime, to get an assist there. So
it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned Tony, because I feel like, European guards would probably play better in that kind of system. That's not basketball,
But Parker was one of those weird, didn't fit that mold either. And I think that when he got to the Spurs, they probably thought that he would be that way. And if you don't remember, Popovich, I think, tortured Parker for the first few years until they got him to figure out.
Ginobili too, he had his issues with, right?
What's that?
He had his issues with Ginobili too, right?
Ooh, I don't remember that, but I can't remember now. Ginobili obviously wouldn't take any mess in terms of guys shooting bad shots, and I suspect that was a big issue with Parker just wanted to be a score first guard, and he was a little early, right? If he came in now, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. And I think
he didn't really shoot the 3, so he would have to stretch that out a little bit.
That Parker. Too, but the mindset of a guard, you go to San Antonio, they're going to expect you to be Avery Johnson. Right. Wow, I was going to say about Avery Johnson, and he was like, "No, I want to be, a scoring guard." So, at any rate, getting back to what we were talking about, which was what we were talking about,
the Kings.
The Kings. Okay, and even before that, I was going to had another point, but
The Nuggets.
yeah. So shout out to Mike Malone, right? So, like, here's a guy who, speaking of Sacramento, he was fired as a head coach of Sacramento, and I'm sure he felt terrible about it. I'm sure he's upset about it. But you know what? It was probably it was the biggest blessing he's had in his life, short of maybe having kids, because he gets to another job in Denver where they have a much more stable, environment around him, and obviously they made the right choice between Nurkic and Jokic. And now,
how about just drafting Jokic in the second round? Changed everything for everybody there.
Yeah,
during a Taco Bell commercial.
That's right. Can you explain that? So somebody said something about having a Taco Bell in their house.
No, Jokic was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. They didn't even air it.
You know what I'm sorry. You know what I'm thinking of? Forgive me. I was watching football this weekend, which I don't normally do, but I was watching football. And there's something about the football players. You don't watch that? And a guy has a Taco Bell in his house, and everyone's like, ha ha. Anyone? No, it's something. Forgive me, I forgot. That wasn't Jokic. It was something else. Some football player said something about Taco Bell and being in their house. And then,
since you mentioned football, my Super Bowl champion prediction is the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen and all the options he has when it comes to wide receivers, and I've been saying that for a while.
Well, are the Ravens still in it?
I don't know.
Because they came here. My son's really into the Chargers. He's like the only Chargers fan in LA. It's kind of weird. And we watched the Chargers game on Saturday. It was sad. They did not perform well. But when and I don't watch football hardly at all, but I've been kind of watching it now this year. But as a result, I don't know anything about anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the Bills. That's it.
The Ravens come in, and I got to tell you, that was impressive. The quarterback was amazing, and then the running back, Henry. That guy's the best running back I'd seen in a long time. So we have a super chat from DeAndre Morris. Unfortunately, there's no question associated with it. So hopefully, if you want to put it in the comments, I'll keep my eye out for it. We'll answer it for you. But thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Really helps us keep the lights on. And then also thank you to Drew for giving me the Ravens and the Bills play next. So that's probably going to be a great game. It sounds like if you're saying the Bills are that good.
Yeah, they'll defeat the Ravens.
My experience with the Bills is losing the Super Bowl all those years in a row or whatever it was with Jim Kelly. That's all I remember.
Why do I think of a Serial? Was he in Serial or something?
Jim Kelly?
Yeah.
He was probably on a Wheaties box.
Yeah, okay.
Probably.
I don't know why I thought Jim Kelly, I thought Serial.
I don't know. But Jim Kelly, by the way, it was another one of those. We're saying how Mike Malone doesn't probably get as much praise as he deserves. Jim Kelly deserves a lot more too. He's out of the discussion as far as I could tell, and he was one of the great quarterbacks. But anyway, let's get back to the NBA. And we have a comment. Russell Westbrook is the greatest point guard of all time. He is not. I'm sorry. I've seen enough of the other ones to know. And you might not remember, but when B-Ball Breakdown was kind of becoming more and more popular, one of those seminal videos back then was that I showed how Russell Westbrook doesn't finish at the rim as well as everybody thought he did.
Right.
And so the highlights were absolutely amazing and stunning and jaw-dropping, no doubt. But the actual percentage, which I think is more important in my mind, was always around average or below average. And it wasn't like I just was sort of throwing it out there. I went through and I explained how, and when he goes off of 1 foot versus 2 feet, and which foot he goes off of, and why he's going too fast. And he's never really adjusted that. And based on his personality, it seems to make sense. Like he probably would never acknowledge that could be something he could get better at. And a lot of people, like even the analytics people, refuse to acknowledge what I was trying to, what I proved with evidence and numbers in their own numbers. So, and as a coach, those kind of players tend to be really frustrating to watch. And so that was sort of what I had been responding to all these years. It's like, he's just all over the place. And, coaches want much more of a consistent play, especially from that position. So
maybe it's good he's playing with a point center.
Right.
Decisions.
And let me look at, I'm kind of curious how many minutes he's playing. So in the last 10, he's over 30 minutes because, for a while there, they had a limit in minutes so he wouldn't get, too many opportunities to hurt them because that was happening a lot. The Lakers had that same issue too, and the Clippers. So, I wonder how sustainable it is, or will it be a regression to the mean? I suspect he will not continue shooting this well from the field from the 2-point range. I just don't think he will. He hasn't done that in a long time or ever. So that's the only question. And if he becomes less efficient, then we got to be a little bit worried about playing him that many minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he starts in the playoffs when that comes around.
Yes. Well, right. I got to look at. I'm going to have to dive in there and really look at how that's shaping up. What lineups are working. So I have to do that next. I got to look at the Kings next. You know what I'm looking at today, though?
What?
I think I invented a new stat.
You told me it's Wemby, but it's kind of like the Bill Russell block.
I mean, I was thinking about it, and I was going to actually try and find some footage of Bill Russell doing it. So here's how it all started. It was a few weeks ago, and I was prepping a video about Wemby versus Jokic. I was kind of maybe doing that, but I missed the window. But I'm watching Jokic footage, and I realized
when you miss windows, like you do videos halfway and just stop.
Sometimes, if
wow.
it's that's why I try and avoid the ones that like you had to get it out within 5 hours, or else it's old. I really try and nail. You pick ones that are a little.
Do those do well when you get it done?
What's that?
Do those do well when you get the 5-hour window ones done or not?
I don't know. Maybe yeah. Sometimes I don't know. I gotta tell you, whatever it is, age. I'm slower these days, and so I have yet to really hit one at the exact right time I've wanted to. I have to tell you that this season they've been later than I wanted to. In the day. And so instead of like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it drops at like 4.
I remember. How's it doing? How's the views? It's been better lately?
No, views are terrible. Please come back, watch all these videos. So I'm going to have to pick some better subjects. I think is the problem. It has to be part of the issue, obviously. That said, I do
thumbnails, titles matter so much.
Titles, thumbnails, all of that matters. But at some point, when you're talking about the NBA specifically, it also, the subject matter is really important. But I'm not going to just sit there doing LeBron and Steph Curry videos all day long. I mean, that would be, it would get views, but I pride myself on being able to cover the NBA and get to as many teams as I can, and make them as interesting as possible so people will watch them. So we'll see.
Well, LeBron versus Jordan always does well. I'll tell you that, at least in short form content.
I've done 4 of those, I think, or at least a couple at least. So go check those out too. But anyway, so we're going through and I'm looking at the footage and I realize that when Jokic blocks a shot, he like recovers the ball a lot of the time. I'm like, this is interesting. And so I said, you know what? Let's figure out the percentage of those, and then let's see what the other guys in the top block shot list look like from there. And so you're never going to guess who ends up being the best at this.
Who?
Well, Wemby. Well, actually, it's not exactly true, because if we look at it in terms of frequency, how often does the block shot go to either the blocker of the shot or a teammate so they can go on the fast break? It actually turns out there's somebody who's got a higher percentage slightly than Wemby. And that person is, you want to try and guess which shot blocker recovers more balls? There's actually one who's like a tiny bit ahead, and then there's one guy who's head and shoulders above everybody else.
Jokic?
No. Jokic is at 47.3% of his block shots are recovered. The guy that's in the head has 67.6%. I had to do it twice. I couldn't believe it.
Which team?
Who out there? Anybody? I'll put you down on the list if you can guess in the comments. And I'll tell you it's a center. Which center has the highest percentage of blocks that are recovered by either him or his teammate, where they can kind of run back down? Not Gafford. Not Gobert. I didn't put Gobert because I actually, and let me preface this. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I looked at the top 5 or 6 in total blocks this year. That's how I did it.
Chet.
So you know what? This isn't. Here's the thing. It takes a while, right? So to go through every block shot. So Jared Allen is in the tops. All right, I'm just gonna have to tell you. Well, let's see if we can figure it out. We're getting closer. So Jared Allen was not. I don't think he for whatever reason is not in the top 5 or 6 in terms of blocks. But no one's going to get it. No one is going to get it.
Chet?
I'm not even sure he deserves the kind of role that he's. So we're gonna, because here's the thing: the act of blocking a shot and recovering it, or the teammate recovering, we're going to call that a Wemby.
Okay.
I kind of like that.
Shouldn't we call it a Bill Russell?
Even though, well, yeah, but let's call it Wemby. Give Wemby something. But even though it's even though he doesn't lead the league in the percentage in terms of frequency of doing this, he's got so many more than anybody else this year that it's like we're going to give it to him. All right, so it's not Şengün. Kessler is one guy I did. Kessler is at 47.4% of his, so he's around Jokic. Miles Turner, I looked at. He's at 42%.
Oh, Jalen Suggs.
So
he's a center.
Yeah, he's got to be center. So Davis is at 57.6%. Wemby is 56.7. So they're about 1 point away. Davis has got a 1 percentage point higher, more active, more often. And at some point, if you don't block enough shots, we're not putting in the conversation, which is sort of why I didn't look at anybody besides the top 5 or 6. Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez recovers 67.6% of his blocks. Insane. Now, part of this is that, they've learned how to, not swipe at the ball. Yes, Drew, and knock the ball out of bounds, right? That's what you don't want to do, right? I mean, it's nice, it's intimidating, it's yada, yada. But at the end of the day, if you could turn that into basically a steal, right? That's not sort of what it is, right? Especially if they get blocked and the guy gets in, he's already on the way down the court, you get to a fast break. That's really important, right? That gives you a huge advantage. So Brook Lopez is the guy by far that does this the most. I couldn't believe it. But here's the thing about Brook Lopez, because it'll give us to our next subject. Did you happen to notice Jaylen Brunson's 44 points in like 30 minutes last night, whatever it was?
I noticed it.
Did you notice who he's playing against?
Tell me more.
The Bucks. What team does Brook Lopez play for?
The Bucks.
Now, you might think that the narrative goes, okay, we're looking at the starters of the Bucks, and we realize that Brunson scored 44, and you might start to think, oh, of course he scored 44, because who do you think they think is guarding him?
Dame Lillard.
That would be what they think. That's not true. Brunson scored 1 basket on Dame.
Yeah, I mean they usually like putting bigger defenders on Brunson. So
yeah, but I gotta tell you, the lack of adjustments defensively by Doc and the Bucks is frightening. But the other thing is that Brook Lopez is just ineffective. He'll block a few shots here and there, but he gives up. He is ineffective. He cannot stop people around the rim. It's painful. And I've seen this before. I was doing a background in another video that I didn't use either. And I was like, oh, wait, did I do that video? Either way, I was looking at maybe pairings of pick and roll defenders. And, I know. Somebody lit up the Bucks somewhat recently, and it was all because of Brook Lopez. Maybe I even did this video. Jeez, what is time? So basically, if you want to score against the Bucks, just run a pick and roll with Brook Lopez's man. That's all you have to do. I mean, it really is. It's gotten to be that badly. I'm waiting for Synergy guys to come back to me to see if they can confirm that exactly with their numbers, although they're not always perfectly accurate based on the way they do it. But I would not be surprised if Lopez's defensive rating in the pick and roll is low. Or suboptimal. So it's a real problem because they're playing him a ton of minutes as well. And they're actually 11th in defensive rating, which is shocking to me, the Bucks overall. But they're certainly better with defensively when Lopez is on the bench. And that's a really noisy stat. It's tough to look at on and off for defensive rating. But my eye test is confirming that without question that there's a problem there, and they don't have any way to adjust, which is a problem, or they don't know what to do. And even when they do, even when they send Lopez up a little higher instead of dropping so much, he can't move, and he's doubled over. That's the other thing is, how we talk. Back in the day, we would teach players, you get really low so you can move quickly. That's just ridiculous, especially when you're a big 7-foot center. He ends up getting bent over at the waist so far. He's so slow, so awkward, and smaller than he can be because he's crouched down too low. It's just a mess. And I don't know if that gets fixed at his stage of his career, but it's frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, also, side note, Cat had 30 and 18, and Brunson had 44, and they were coming off, I don't know, either the game or the game before that, a bad loss to OKC. They look terrible. So it's good to see the Knicks playing well.
Yeah, they're figuring some things out. They had a big win over OKC, like you said, and then and now this one.
No, a big loss.
No, I thought
they got killed.
Right. OKC, they had the lead in OKC, and then they lost in the fourth. Okay, forgive me.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, it's exciting at least, and to watch Brunson do what he does in this jitterbugging around the court is really exciting to me.
Oh, here's a good question for you.
Yeah.
Who's better, him or Cade Cunningham?
Oh, it's tough because you can factor in the fact that Cade Cunningham is a better defender, and just because he's bigger and longer. I think I might have to go with Brunson. Yeah, but Cade Cunningham is coming on and will be better. Maybe he's better. I don't know. It's close. What do you think?
I mean, I think for the Knicks, Brunson is definitely better. I wouldn't trade Brunson for Cade, right? But in general, I think Cade is a better basketball player for partly the reason you said. He's a two-way player. He's 6'6". He probably passes the ball better. The only thing he doesn't do is score as well as Brunson, but he probably does everything else better.
Right. Yeah. It's a good question though. Okay, and then who's better, Banchero or Cade Cunningham?
I like the way Cade plays basketball better than Paulo, but what Paulo did last night was impressive coming off an injury. And I think he's more of he's more of an ISO scorer than Cade, and Cade is more of like a big playmaker. So I just tend to like players that make everybody around them better.
Yeah, I mean, but Banchero also is a pass. I guess you can't call him a pass first player, but he scans the floor and he will throw dimes as well. I thought he was pretty rusty last night. I thought he looked good a couple times, but then he threw the ball away.
I mean, he did have 34.
Not look good. And then he missed some shots. He missed a dunk down the stretch that was not, just rusty. He just looked like he needs some more games under his.
He looked like he was playing one-on-one a lot.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing is I don't like what the Magic are doing on offense. But that's like getting back to what your point is about what the Kings did. When they get Paolo back and healthy and ready and completely in rhythm, and they get Franz back, then they don't need offense, right? Those guys are so good at passing and driving and shooting like that. They don't, you basically got to just get some space and then you'll be okay. So that said, eventually you're playing on the road in a tough playoff game and you need to be able to have some good stuff to run. I don't know what that's going to turn into, but and I think they had that problem in the playoffs last year, if my memory serves. So that's the only thing I'd be concerned about. But they're going to be a tough team to play against no matter what. They're really going to be good once they get all healthy. This is the Magic I'm talking about. Let's get to Bron. And you know what, DeAndre Morris, I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't see a comment of yours if you wanted to get the question in after your super chat that didn't have a text in it. But I'm looking. I don't see it. So, but let's get to Bron, best friend of the breakdown. Always great to see you, Bron. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Coach, I've always leaned towards assuming certain plays aren't travels thanks to you. That said, I feel like Giannis travels a lot. Is it just me? Well, I caught one I shared in the post where he lifted the pivot, put it back down, scored. They did not call it. And I just saw another one that they didn't call either. So I might have to do – remember, did you ever see that video I did on Drew Timme combo?
No, but he's killing in the G League.
Is he? Yeah. Okay. I keep seeing things and it looks sad, like he's not doing anything. But maybe it was like a clip of him, in a practice.
He's a really good basketball player. He just doesn't fit the NBA game.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. He probably should just be making millions in the Euro League right now.
Oh, yeah. He'll make a lot of money in Europe, but he probably wants to play in the NBA, so more power to him.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe he deserves a chance. But I had done a video where we went over so many post-ups where he's just moving the pivot foot all over the place, and they weren't catching it either. And I was just like, he should clean that up anyway. But I'm wondering if I should do the same thing for Giannis. I'm going to maybe go through a bunch of his post-ups and look.
Isn't it hard to see like those little slides, though, when in real time?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, too. Like, you got to be certain before you make a call for travel. So I get that as well. But when you step through on an extra step, that's not sliding the little pivot foot an inch or whatever. That's kind of major. You got to be aware of the steps, which is interesting because I don't even know if he's Bron is talking about the post-up stuff or just the full court, in stride ones where he takes one dribble from the 3-point line.
Oh, I think those are usually not travels when he's in transition.
Yeah. I mean, the gaffer step is a powerful, weapon that you need to know how to use, which kind of takes us to the other. I was in the middle of the video now on that Kuzma play where I don't know if you saw it when they outletted the ball to him and he touched the ball with like half of 2 fingers and then it's bouncing in front of him and then he grabs it much later and then goes into a Euro. That's not a control when he tapped it, when he batted the ball out of the air. And everyone's like, of course it's control. That's got to be a dribble, and it's not. It's certainly, but the rules are very clear. And I'll have I have an NBA referee on the show who broke it down with us. It's not. That's not in the eyes of the rules and the precedent that's been established for a long time. It's not a control. Not control that the NBA rulebook describes. And so as a result, he's not dribbling it yet. And the concern obviously is that it went viral 3 times in a row and I had to deal with people for 3 days on Twitter with it. But they want to look at that as why they're turning off, they don't want to watch the game anymore, but it's like, you don't want to watch the game because you don't understand the rules. That's like what you're telling me.
I don't see this. I mean, you're dealing maybe with like a different demographic or a different audience. And you obviously have a very large audience on X, but I don't I interact with more people on Instagram and they never ever say, and I hear like a lot of complaints about the NBA, anything about like the traveling or the way, the refs are calling in that regard. Some people will say, bring back more physicality, which the NBA has been doing, but I don't see the travel thing as much as you do.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes up on rare occasions like that. What he did there will happen. Like Klay Thompson did one 2 seasons ago, where he kind of batted it. It wasn't controlled, didn't have it, and then he picked it up and started dribbling. And that one triggered people up to no end as well. So it's not only like those happen that often, but when they do, you get people who are casual observers even weighing in. And the worst part about it is that, like, on Blue Sky, people are much more, they're just sort of like, oh, that's interesting, or I don't agree with that, whatever. But on Twitter, it's just a cesspool of anger and vitriol that's, it makes it very hard. And I'm extremely patient, trying to help people understand it better, until I can get to a point where either they're just so horrible and I have to block them or just ignore them, or they slink away because I showed them how the rule is. And it'd be nice if they just would say thanks. Oh, I didn't know that, but instead they just disappear. They don't come back, and it's like, oh well. You know what I've been doing now recently, Combo? They've been sliding in my mentions all hot and bothered. And so clearly they're already upset about this. And so I say, I'd be happy to explain how the rule works with this play only. But I said, but you need to agree that you will actually acknowledge that I told you this information. And it's not working. People are not getting back to me. Because you know what? They, even if I show them why the rule works, they won't come back and say, "Oh, okay, thanks." Like that's a bridge too far for people, and that's a big problem.
Well, people like to argue on the internet, not really agree.
They do.
Yeah.
But don't people want to like get better and learn? No, I guess that's your answer. That's my I'm always like, I want to get better. I want to learn more. I want to learn more about the game, but people don't always want to do that, and that's their prerogative. That's what I tell them. I say, listen, it's a free country. You are allowed to have whatever opinion you like. I just don't want you to be frustrated anymore about some of these plays. So it's not a great place to be in. I don't want that for you. But that doesn't go over that well either. People who the nicer you are to people like that tends to make them more angry. If you haven't noticed. So Banchero came back. It's exciting again. We have to find out what the Franz Wagner prognosis is. Do we know when he's coming back?
No, I don't know.
It's only if we could look it up. If I do this, I got to go. Let's see. NBC Sports is where I go to, but it's not even called NBC Sports anymore. Maybe it is. Let's see. What do they say? The team said that he'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. This was December 7th. So you know what? It's probably sooner than later we'll hear something about it. So when he comes back and they have time to get gel, we know that his brother is gone. I think he's out for the season. What about Suggs? Is Suggs injured?
Nah, yeah, he's injured too.
Is he coming back?
No, I don't think anytime soon.
Yeah, so that's another problem. They need him too. So they can get healthy before the playoffs, and I would no one want to play him.
That is true.
Yeah, but anyhow,
who do you want to play in the East? The East is better than people think. Than people predicted is a good way to put it.
Yeah, my last video, I predicted that the Cavaliers are going to beat the Celtics, and that's probably another video I should do, right?
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, they're just built pretty well to handle them, right? They can go big. They've got defense and wings. They might get exposed a little bit with like Mitchell, But what do you think about Mitchell's defense?
Not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying
to picture. Okay, they put Peyton Pritchard in, and then Donovan Mitchell's got to guard him. I'm trying to picture that. That might not go well for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. It's crazy because defensively from the guards, they're not great, but they clean up so much of it with Mobley and Allen, and then they have some wing defenders that are pretty good too.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and offensively, they're really
You know what? What's interesting about Cleveland? Their strength offensively is smaller guards and bigger bigs, which is kind of different than the rest of the league. And maybe that's part of the reason they're taking the league by storm. They're hitting you where you're most resistant, right? Where teams aren't used to being hit. Yeah.
I hear you. I mean, but like Evan Mobley is sort of like, listen, he's gotten better offensively. It's great to see him up to 19 points a game and shooting a high percentage because he shoots, mostly around the rim, but he's gotten better at that sort of handling the ball role.
You know what he's gotten better at, which is kind of not what people expected out of Evan Mobley, just barreling through people and powering up with two hands. Like they expected Mobley to be like, oh, maybe his skill will develop, but I think his ferocity and his strength has developed, even though he doesn't look like the biggest guy. Like, he just barrels through people and dunks it with 2 hands.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hear that. And then, what we did see the other game against OKC was Jared Allen dominating glass and the offense.
Is Mobley leading the league in in dunks?
Maybe. I don't know. Sounds
so.
right. And that's also, remember, the function of him getting all those dunks is from Donovan Mitchell and the penetration from the guys, Garland in the backcourt. Those are the reasons why he'll get a lot of those dunks, right? They're set up. So he's just, fortunate to be out there in a functioning offense that lets him do that. But when he starts to impose his will on the offensive glass, it's like, geez, I don't know how you're supposed to handle that. He created so many opportunities for Cleveland in that game.
So I think they started Max instead of Ty Jerome. I think Ty might have been out with an injury, and they ended up losing, not putting it all on Max. But it'll be interesting to see how they move forward with the starting lineup, because Ty has been so good this season, but Max is probably the better basketball player. So
and Strus comes back against OKC and looked absolutely terrific. I think he hit all his threes or most of his threes, but he was also facilitating in a way too, which is exciting. We talked about that before. A player like Max Strus in the past would have been a guy who they wouldn't let come out of the corner. You stand there, and when we throw it to you, you got to shoot it. You're going to make whatever, and then that's all. But he gets to come off of screens. He gets to penetrate a little bit and kick. No-look passes. Like he gets to handle the ball, and it's really great. I mean, finally, that kind of player is getting to have open up the role more, and I think it's going to make for better basketball overall.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't think Max could handle the ball and shoot the ball off the dribble and make plays, just go back to Summer League, because he was dominant with the basketball in his hands in Summer League. We saw a lot from Summer League Max.
Yeah, absolutely. And he can do it. Not like he dominate on it, but he can do it. And it keeps.
Yeah, he's not only a shooter,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's great. And then they let him not be only a shooter. Right. So that's key as well. Because, there are still coaches out there that will pigeonhole players and make sure they can't do anything they don't want them to do. But I think now it's a lot less than it used to be. So players are able to be to find ways to impact the offense without just catching.
Because it's less about positions anymore. It's more about like meshing, skill sets and tendencies. So it's not like rigid positions. Like if you play with a guy like Jokic, you need certain guys to play a certain way, kind of depending on who your best player is and how you mold around him. And
it's also really hard to shoot when you might go 5 minutes without touching the ball, and you 100%. Go to the same spot every single time down the floor, and you're not part of the offense. Like that's.
And then there's some guys who thrive like that, like Danny Green, right? Like he was okay doing that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who are the Danny Greens now.
That's what I think. The game has become more read and react, and there's just less need for players like Danny Green.
Yeah, there's like less, Reddicks even.
Yeah, 3 and D he wasn't so much D, but he obviously a great 3-point shooter. But there's less like need for 3 and D players. You need to be like a read and react type wing that could do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I agree, and it just makes the game more interesting too. It's like the back in the day, the bigs would just go from block to block to block and just getting beat up the entire time.
Yeah.
Maybe they throw him a bone and give him a pass every now and then. And now, a lot of those big guys can flare out to the wing, get a catch, rip through and go, whatever. Things that are making it more interesting as well. I mean, we've heard players as far back as even farther, but like Ibaka used to complain. He just run to the baseline and just stand there, and every 10th out possession he catch the ball and have to shoot it. That's just sort of not a great way to play basketball, and I think the engagement lessens, but from the players, and so I think that's another thing. Like Kerr always noticed, knew, and learned from like Phil Jackson was that just letting the guy be part of the offense, touch the ball, cut, feel like that part of it will make him play defense harder, or opens that up to him as well. So, what else do we have to talk about here today?
Well, let's look at the docket.
All right. Well, we talked about Russ. We talked about the Knicks a little bit. Jokic. Let's see what else. And the Wemby stat we talked about. So I don't know. I mean, what else? Yeah. What else is there these days? I mean, we're getting a little bit close to the end of the show.
Yeah, we could call it till next one.
Right. Well, I mean, I do have to go record my my political pod in a few minutes. And
go do your thing.
Politics, especially now with the fires that are going on in LA. You can always check out the Muckrake podcast.
That is so sad, Coach Nick. It's like just heartbreaking to see that.
Oh, I know. And like the Palisades, which is pretty much destroyed. Steve Kerr's house his childhood house is gone.
Crazy.
it's one of the nicer areas in the world. So you have to hope that everyone had, insurance and can handle recovery. But, not everybody was in that situation monetarily. But it's just kind of crazy. The downtown, this is gone. Like there's like one structure left for all that stuff. So it's frustrating. It's also frustrating how many of the fingers are being pointed right now. I think the prevailing, wisdom here on the ground is that like these were 80 to 100 mile an hour winds that were going to blow embers miles down the road. There really wasn't much you could do to handle that, And just so you know, out there, fire hydrants, those are designed like when you have a fire at a house, and then you plug it in and you put the house out. Not 100 houses all next to each other. Like that's not how the fire.
The videos look insane.
Can do that.
Yeah.
So that's part of it too. But listen, at some point they'll have to pull us all apart and find out who was at fault, if there was fault about the reservoirs. But it's a lot of weird information. It's kind of unclear. But at the bottom line, when you see some of that footage, it should be pretty clear. Like this was basically a fire in the middle of a hurricane.
Wow.
Basically. So anywho. And so just be wary of anything you see out there, especially if it's on Twitter. And just if you see something that doesn't sound right, just do a little bit more fact checking and just make sure that that's right before you let it harden in your brain for anything for that matter, and basketball too.
Thoughts and prayers with all the families.
Yes, and thoughts and prayers. I mean, we had some families staying with us because they were somewhere near the fires, and so it's
is their okay?
It's devastating. What
is their house okay?
Their house is okay. I mean, they were about a quarter of a mile from the very edge of the warning area. So so there's a layers in between. But as we saw, when the winds pick up, which they're going to pick up again later on today or tomorrow, it was like 3 football fields a minute is how fast this thing was traveling at some point. So that's what's scary about it. Anyhow. Anything else in there in the comments? We can throw one more point we want to talk about really quickly before we go. Anybody? No? Celtics going to repeat? I don't think so. I have the Cavs and the Thunder in the finals.
I would love to see it, to be honest.
And it will break the NBA's ratings record for fewest people watching.
Maybe. I thought you were going to say the other way. That's yeah.
No, but
actually, no. They said that game had good ratings, though. The one game.
Did it? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Zion's back. I mean, all I know is Zion is suspended.
No, well, I think he came back after the suspension and played well.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he looks like he's in great shape.
Right. Oh, and then what was I seeing? It's the Cam Johnson sweepstakes. Who's going to trade for him? He's going to help somebody.
Man, the tank job that the Nets are doing and the Utah Jazz are doing, and they were playing against each other last night, and then half the team was out for injury for the Nets, just
really
miraculously. Like it was Cam Johnson. So it was Cam Johnson, the other Cam, and D'Lo.
Cam Thomas. All right. They were all out. Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're afraid they don't want Cam Johnson to get hurt because he's like they're going to get a bunch of firsts for him, or a couple firsts, I'd imagine.
It'd be interesting. Where? OKC maybe?
Yeah. How about the Warriors? How really would he be with the Warriors?
I just feel like Cam does more for OKC than he does with the Warriors. Like in terms of like, all right, who does Cam have a better chance of winning a title with? Obviously OKC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't need him. I don't think OKC has to do anything. Now they have somebody.
You always get better. If I would use Topic as a trade piece because he's going to be really good, but he'll never fit with SGA in my opinion. Like he needs the basketball. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, it's like, if you have a chance, you kind of got to take advantage of that now, while you have the opportunity, because you never know what's going to happen next year, the year later. As the Warriors learned, right? They were trying to, do two timelines, and things change on a dime, and the things don't develop like you think they will. So you need to be able to do something now, and you don't want to see another season of Steph, lost to a non-playoff appearance. So they need to do something else. The Schroeder trade wasn't enough, I don't think. Right. So I think he'd fit really well there. Someone thinks AD to Warriors. I don't think AD is going anywhere, right? Like they can't afford to trade him, even though the pairing of AD and LeBron is not as impactful as it used to be, unfortunately, for the Lakers.
Well, it's interesting. All of the three greats' impact is not as much.
Right.
Like when it comes to Steph, KD, and LeBron. I was saying that years ago, and I got some backlash for that, but whatever.
Yeah. Steph looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders now. It's tough.
Yeah.
So anyhow, all right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up because I got to get back to my other stuff and do some prepping for the pod there. But again, Combo, thanks for coming on and being part of the show as always.
Let's do it again soon. I'll see you Monday.
Yeah, we'll be back again Monday. Don't forget midday on the West Coast. And thank you all for being out there. Thanks, Bron. Thanks, DeAndre. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown. We're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in?